Let's talk 13 colonies. Not so much the US, but the 13 astrological symbols and/or space colonies. This is a myth that is propagated through our astral consciousness and in our art and media. So let's talk about it because it's almost as cool and weird as robot octopi. So the robot octopus thing is like the weirdest, or spider bots, it's the weirdest thing that I talk about here. But okay, so the 13 colonies piece is also sort of part of this paradigm. To me, maybe I just haven't lived it, but to me it is more astral and astrological and not as personal or literal of a history. But it is a myth that we see a lot of the 12. It's sort of an antichrist myth, but I'm trying not to judge it. Okay, but that's the way I define it, as instead of the sun, you have a 13th synthetic race. So the two places where we see this most popularized are the new Battlestar Galactica that was out in the mid-2000s and the Hunger Games. So you have 12 tribes, and in fact, in Battlestar Galactica, they named it after the zodiacal constellations, which was cool. I'm not sure about the original. I feel like that was a newer thing. So they're like, Gemini and Virgon and Scorpion or whatever, So they did the 12 astrological symbols, and then the 13th tribe was Earth. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it 20 years ago. So I should probably put a spoiler on here. Anyway, so their whole premise was that the Cylons were the 13th tribe that were synthetic, and that Cylons had always been a part of the people, and that they were the 13th tribe, and they left, and they lived on Earth, and so they named what is now Earth after this previous synthetic race. So their story is basically that with technology, we rise to these high ages where we create machines and then robots and then AI, and then eventually the AI turns into people and rebels against the masters because they're treated as slaves, but they're people, which I agree with. And then this causes this war. That war destroys humanity, destroys or at least depletes the synthetic race, and then they, both eventually rise back up and find each other in the next technological age. In the Hunger Games, again, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, I read all the books and watched all the movies. Although I'm not a huge expert on it, there are a lot of cool themes. So in the Hunger Games, there's the capital, which is basically Washington, D.C., and then there's 12 colonies, or 12 districts. What's cool is this is also the same word as District 9 and District of Columbia. So in the Hunger Games, you have the 12 tribes, or the 12 colonies, or the 12 districts, and then you have the capital, which is the 13th. So the classic 12 plus 1 equals 13 is Christ and the apostles, Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, or the sun and the Zodiac. This is why Christ is a solar force. It's not strictly masculine, and it is individual. It is a capacity that humans have that Yeshua the Nazarene kind of tapped us into, but that's a whole other thing. That's esoteric Christianity. That's my belief and background. But there is this solar theme. So does that mean that Jesus was strictly a sun worshiper? No, but there is some mythological evidence that he died during a solar eclipse. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's the myth. And so the myth goes that when he said, "My God, why have you abandoned me?" that's when the sun was blocked out, and then he died. So anyway, there's this Jesus as a solar analogy. So each of these tribes, districts, etc., can also represent a zodiac sign in the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the sun circle, by the way. So when we're geocentric, we represent ourselves as the dot and the ecliptic as that circle. And when we represent it as heliocentric, which we have since Nicholas Copernicus, although he was really bashed in his own time for that one, then we have the sun in the middle and the planets. So this is why I do like Zecharia Sitchin's model. I disagree with his alien god shit, but I actually really like the 12 planet model. So I have a lot of my own work that goes back to planetary metals and Rome and like horoscopes. Like, how do we go from 7 to 12? What is that plus 5? And anyway, it's a whole thing. So, but this is a story that we've told our subconscious, that we've told and retold, that is deeply a part of our consciousness. And I think it is possible that it's real. Is it something that I have personal experience and past life recall on? No, but it does speak to me deeply as if it's at least mythologically true. So my philosophical problem with this myth, and you could even go, esoteric and ethical problem, is that it paints the 13th instead of the sun or the Christ as the machine. And so to me, that's a machine worshiping cult, but that has been coming up a lot with these 13 stars. So I just put 3 videos up. I broke it up into 3 videos on purpose on Ophiuchus, which is the 13th zodiac sign that has 13 stars. And that's because I've been dreaming that the American flag goes back to this circle of 13 stars. I agree with a commenter, and I'm trying not to make reply videos and call people out because I think it's a little aggressive. But there's a commenter on one of my Ophiuchus videos that says that it wasn't so much that America was created by the 13 colonies, it's that we were created by the 13 astrological symbols, and I agree. But I agree with the exception that the 13th is the king, Arthur, Christ, Jesus, that sort of thing, or the sun, and not the machine. Again, I do have a lot of videos on here, especially recently, talking about how the machine people, Doge spelled backwards is e-god, that the technocrats are actually trying to replace the sun with the machine, or rather that they're afraid of the sun and they're trying to genetically bypass it, and that's what a lot of the genetic engineering is about. It's because they're afraid of the apocalypse caused by the sun, and that will be another 2 videos that I have 2 topics on at the request of another commenter. So go ahead and look at my page if you like. I may be posting about the sun tomorrow instead of today, so look for that at least Tuesday. But this fear of Carrington events is actually a fear of apocalypses, duh, but that is also tied in with this genetic engineering and machine cult. I call it a cult because there's religious and ritual behavior. There are belief systems, there's esoterica, there's material and non-material elements, there are physical players as well as ideas or gods. So it has, when I say cult, I don't mean drink the Kool-Aid level cult. I mean, a cult means to take care of something, to worship something, to do a ceremony around something. It literally just means to care for something. So when I say cult, I mean a ritual belief system that has actions and people, as well as beliefs and ideas. By that measure, wearing the same jersey as your favorite player is cult behavior. So I use that term very loosely and anthropologically. That's from anthropology. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, District 13 was the 13th tribe or 13th colony that they thought was going to save them and ended up being just as corrupt and fucked up as everybody else. And the Cylons in Battlestar Galactica thought they were better than everybody else because they were monotheistic, but they had the same flaws as everyone else. So there's this sense that the 13th tribe is like the long-lost brethren, but at the same time, they seem to be almost analogous to the current government. Like they don't necessarily replace the government, but that they're basically just as bad at the end of the day. So I think there's this deep esoteric history and astral history, really, this emotion body that we have with the 13th, our lost people. We could also tie in Judaism's tradition of 13 brothers and 13 tribes, specifically Benjamites. And Judeans are like a big piece of this, where there were 12 brothers, and they really only talk about the 2 youngest ones and Joseph a little bit, but there's the 12 tribes of Israel as well, so that's another factor. That one I don't see as strong of a 13, but there's still this 12 tribes sense, so we definitely have this tradition going back millennia, and there does seem to be some investment in this concept.